Hey guys, welcome back to the Casual NBA Fanatic podcast. Now, the season is well underway. We're now 4 days into the NBA season, and we've really been gift wrapped an exceptional start and really just so many key performers so far this season. Obviously, we saw Victor Wembanyama's debut. We've seen how good the Warriors look in that Denver feisty matchup that they had. Luka Doncic looks absolutely amazing to start this season too, but the person I want to shed light on, just in terms of the actual effort and the load capacity that he's had to show off so far to start this year, and that really has been Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and what he has been able to do, delivering two of some of the most hard-fought regular season wins that you'll see to start a season really ever. This is a guy who we know how accomplished of a season he had last year, obviously really claiming every single award that you could have looked for, and coming into this season, just someone just so transcendent as like an actual high intensity leader and competitor to come into a season after achieving everything that he did and to deliver two hard fought battle games like he has so far. Defending the ring ceremony over in Houston. Obviously, we've already spoken about that, just how magnificent that 30-point second half burst was, just floating OKC's half court offense. But he does it again just 2 days later against Indiana, and he delivers you a career-high 55 points, 8 rebounds, and 5 assists. I know, obviously, the free throw numbers, people, especially that people that didn't watch the game, they'll point at that. But, I mean, this guy is one of the most fierce competitors and someone that just continuously battles and fights for any, single edge that he can get on any single team. And he's played, in these 2 games, these haven't been teams that, are pretty dysfunctional defensively. These are 2 teams, especially with Houston, they offer the athleticism and the high physical charging athletes that are so talented at measuring up against what Shai can do as a shot creator. And then Indiana are just so polished and experienced with the Shai matchup, especially obviously going from the last year's final series. But these are 2 highly physical matchups that he's had to play against, who both have great game plans for him individually, but he still manages to pour out 90 points in 2 games. And really that 55 piece on the road against a riled up Pacers squad, and really just to cap off both back-to-back wins, both in double overtime, I think it's just a huge testament to Shai's ability to purely float half-court offense at the highest level with his transcendent shot making and this shot creation within the arc. Obviously, the three's been off so far for him, but in terms of actually generating high-quality intermediate zone looks for himself, shots that he is comfortable with the elevation, the over-the-top advantages, the actual balance, this guy's been absolutely elite. And in terms of getting to the line, baiting contact, I mean, like you saw in the Houston game, all the ticky-tacky fouls that they're giving up. At this point, teams just try to get the ball out of this guy's hands. And with how transcendent OKC's defense is, that gives Shai just so much wriggle room to be able to create these looks and actually just purely just try and manufacture offense down the stretch of games. And obviously, OKC's formula for winning these clutch battles doesn't look overly consistent, especially when we do project them to play more polished offensive systems around the league, like if they run into a Denver Nuggets type of offense, or like the Golden State Warriors and how they look right now. In terms of how they manufacture offense, it's a lot more cleaner, a lot more holistic, a lot more movement integrating and systematic based. But this OKC Thunder squad, just the luxury, just to rely solely on this guy's ability to actually just create looks out of pick and roll, out of ISO, on either side of the floor, on any angle, at any section on the floor. There aren't many guys in NBA history that you could rely on to give you this type of half-court scoring value. And, guys that you might be able to look towards are legit just 3-level scoring, all-time level guards like Kobe, like Michael Jordan. And this guy is probably next up in terms of that actual talent of putting points on the board individually, starting from the perimeter. Now, in that Pacers game, it's mostly stems from the methodical mismatch attacking that he showcased, just the value of his over-the-top size against smaller guards as well. That has been truly on display in the regular season. Like what we talk about with Luka, the over-the-top advantages and the ability to maximize what your size and physical stature gives you. SGA is not the bulkiest or the absolute most strongest guard, but he can distribute his weight to a level that really stuns most of these base structured defenders. And with the over-the-top release size that he has and his ability to actually bait contact and anticipate when defenders will leave their feet, that has enabled him to actually get quality looks. And we saw both against Reed Shepherd and Peter from the Pacers just being able to use that over-the-top size to actually hunt more downhill pressure. We've just seen all-time elite abilities at actually baiting physicality. Just perfectly timed shot and head fake counters that we've seen for years upon years now in this guy's bag, just to get defenders continuously out of position. This guy's an absolute master when it comes to the actual reaction-based shot creation, and he might be the greatest of all time at doing so. We've seen the extreme speed variance coming downhill, especially when he does get those openings out of pick and roll. And we saw that in transition where he can really burst past. And he's in these 2 games, he's absolutely destroyed Houston and Indiana's front lines, absolutely embarrassing their rim protection, just with his angle selection coming downhill. And that does stem from his ability to actually toy and misdirect with bigs, especially bigs that do come up to the level that don't have the athletic capacity to actually match those gear changes downhill. And then also just sticking with the aggression, that was another big piece with SGA, just battling continuously for shots that he feels comfortable in, especially in those late game situations, just constantly getting to that intermediate zone with confidence, trusting in his conditioning and that all-time touch to actually thrive through to clutch situations. And he's had back-to-back double OT games. That is really draining and taxing on your body, especially when you get to that overtime itself, especially with how over-reliant OKC has been on his ability to produce offense solely. And I think it's just a testament to the actual conditioning and his stamina levels and just the all-time touch to actually trust those looks even when he is gassed. And, against Indiana, down the stretch of that game, he was barbecuing all athletes that they were actually throwing at him. We're talking about Jarris Walker matchups, Bennedict Mathurin matchups, Ben Shepherd especially, Obi Toppin, hunting him in switches. And these are all superb athletes, and these are relatively high-level defenders, in my opinion. And obviously with Indiana, unlike Houston, they don't have the actual pinpoint designated matchup that can actually offer that true resistance like what Amen Thompson can and Tari Eason can do in spurts. But they can offer an array of different perimeter and wing stoppers that can actually resist him at least to a decent enough degree. And they do it to a level where guys like Ben Shepherd and Bennedict Mathurin, they're offering that full court pressure, that full court intensity every single possession. And really Indiana's game plan is more to incrementally tire SGA down the stretch of games. But his stamina just absolutely rode through with this one. And his ability to get to the free throw line, bait contact, that absolutely got him this win. And that's why he has dropped these 90 points in 2 games. One of the most historically great starts to a season that we've ever seen, especially considering the stakes and the teams that he is going up against, the talent. I think some people will overlook what this Indiana team can bring this season, but this Indiana team, if you actually look at them on paper, the actual ability of guys like, Pascal Siakam, who looks absolutely hot to start this season from that first game, Bennedict Mathurin, his rim pressure abilities, and just him being a matchup problem, what Andrew Nembhard can do as a creator coming out of pick and roll, Aaron Nesmith as that movement shooter, that is a really strong core to actually build foundational offense around. So this Pacers team, they'll be a pain in the ass for a lot of teams here, but SGA just being able to overcome these 2 elite teams, absolutely amazing. Now, other points for this absolute heater double overtime game, I just think Chet Holmgren is another big storyline from what we saw. Obviously, he dropped 28 points versus Houston. But what I was pretty disappointed, I think, against Indiana. Obviously, he's got a much tougher matchup. He doesn't have the same foot speed advantages and the mobility advantages going at a Şengün and toasting him, off ball with his movement. Obviously, Pascal Siakam is a guy that really Chet has no singular advantage against. Even the over-the-top release that some people might look towards, being able to get, theoretically, he should be able to get comfortable jump shot attempts. But with the slow and hitch release, Pascal Siakam just has that extra time to close out to him. And I just think Chet Holmgren, he's got a lot to grow. And really, OKC's just really got to bank on J-Dub coming back in and being that super mature rim pressure and guard next to him. We've seen success of what a secondary ball handler / rim pressure can do next to SGA. And we saw that again last night with AJ Mitchell and just how good he was toasting guys off the dribble with his strong body, with his exceptional quads to launch into those Brunson-like stop-start speed changes out of pick and roll. But Chet Holmgren, I think this season, it's really hard with a guy like him. And Obviously, we look towards Victor Wembanyama and the progression that he's shown, but strength just means so much in today's NBA. And it's not even strength to like create shots and create comfortable room and fight for positioning. Strength is literally used in every single like aspect of the game. And for Chet Holmgren, his lack of strength, fighting for rebounds on the glass, fighting bigs in the post, trying to contain drives, trying to contain trying to set screens and stuff, that drains his overall abilities as it is when he does get the ball off the catch as well. Like his actual strength just drains his stamina so much. And I think it will take a few years. Like I'm a massive believer in Chet Holmgren. I think defensively he's a top 3 defender on the planet. I think he's one of the most polished, skill-like bigs that we have going around. 1000% sure about that. But I just think the strength, and as far as projecting him as like a tertiary or even just a secondary shot creator, something that a lot of people have high hopes for, I think that will be still a few years away just with the lack of strength. Like obviously looking at even like Wembanyama, I think Wembanyama is just a tier above in terms of the athleticism. We're seeing a guy who is exceptionally balanced, exceptional in the agility. We've seen the footwork counters, the balance when he does rise up into those looks, going off those shot and head fake counters. Like Wembanyama looks extremely polished, getting and hunting those shots within the arc. Chet Holmgren is just a notch below that at this point in time. And the strength gap between those two guys as well, that is also just a massive differentiator between the two. And that's why Wemby is so comfortable creating those looks. I just think Chet Holmgren, and it showed again in this matchup, and when it comes to playoff time, he's more of that off-ball piece and that absolute defensive juggernaut. I do believe in his value. I think Chet Holmgren is a top 30 player in the NBA today, right now, and I think he is stamped, especially from what we saw last season, the defensive dominance last year. And I just think with OKC, what they can take from this game is you really just got to appreciate how much SGA can actually do to float an offense. And look, the lineup that OKC threw out last night and to close, I mean, SGA, Luguentz Dort, Aaron Wiggins, Chet Holmgren, Hartenstein, and then obviously AJ Mitchell floated into a lot of those minutes and into both double overtimes. But in terms of just on paper, I actually don't think OKC would have been that favored to win that matchup last night. And really, just looking at how Pascal Siakam was absolutely toasting Chet Holmgren from the perimeter and how pristine his polished shot making looks, how exceptional Bennedict Mathurin looks at actually generating rim pressure just purely with his physical athleticism. The Pacers, just their ability to move the ball and create open shots for all of their skilled guys across the roster. We saw even Jarris Walker step in, some really high-level passes and reads in transition that he was able to make. His ability to extend offense and offer actual plus pull-up shooting in spurts. Obi Toppin's ability to extend offense at such a fast rate. The Pacers' pristine system and the actual depth of personnel that they were still able to throw out last night against an OKC roster that was also missing Alex Caruso and Cason Wallace. I actually wouldn't have said OKC would have been that favored, especially with how riled up that Pacers arena was. But I think for OKC fans, you can't take this for granted. What this guy's doing night to night, it is not sustainable for championship level offense. Even last year, I know they had J-Dub in the lineup, but even last year we didn't see them this over-reliant on SGA's ability to manufacture just shots. But things will have to change in Oklahoma City soon. I know AJ Mitchell looks really nice and all, but overall, just the amount of ISOs and pick and rolls that we've had to see this guy run already in 2 games, it's a testament to his conditioning, it's a testament to his all-time shot touch, and it's a testament to his competitive fire. But things are going to have to change in OKC to actually preserve his energy for when they do get to the playoffs. Obviously, in the regular season, we know they are probably going to be still a dominant juggernaut in the Western Conference especially. But in the playoffs, you want this guy full and ready. And I just think we can't wait to see J-Dub get back and actually offer some more alleviation of that star shot creating factor. But nonetheless, this guy's been absolutely exceptional to start the season. Shai, 55 points, 8 rebounds, and 5 assists to cap off that double OT win against Indiana. But moving on to the second game of yesterday's slate, the Warriors versus the Denver Nuggets in what was another overtime thriller, with the Warriors claiming their win 137-131 in what was a pretty back and forth game, but in a game where we saw a career night from Aaron Gordon, 50 points, 8 rebounds, mightily efficient, 17 of 21. That's 81% of field goal percentage, and he went 10 for 11 on threes last night. Just absurdly efficient, just on the play finishing piece, but also a few self-creation perks, especially coming out of the post from him. But the story of the night was Steph Curry's ability to fully will his team back, just showcasing the unbelievable competitor that he is for yet another time at age 37. Now, Steph Curry, this was a slow first half, kind of similar to what we saw against the Lakers in Game 1 of this season. 7 points to start, but then he drops a crazy 35-point second half, going 11 for 17, just doing everything he can to hunt any angle and any shot release window that he was comfortable with taking, and just dazzling conditioning for his age, for someone who can hunt continuous half-court shot-created buckets. And he did this on and off the ball throughout the entire second half. And his actual on and off ball value, especially when he is creating on ball the way he is now, when he is as sharp and precise and reactive as a ball handler as he was last night, that is when you can actually see him as arguably still a top 3 offensive player in basketball. And just the actual off ball movement, like the value, it's still extraordinary. In terms of like the 3-man actions on the back line as well, his ability to move around in space, his ability to take advantage of lapses of judgment from Christian Braun, particularly last night, get those easy cutting lanes. He knows Draymond Green's going to connect him on those every single time. But also just the sparking shooting and the confidence every time coming off a screen, even when he has Christian Braun staying attached to the hit. Like, you know, on Christian Braun's part, it's hard not to concede those audacious looks. But like Steph's actual shot making and the confidence, the balance, the fluidity of his shot motion as soon as he catches off the screen, everything was going last night. And like the dribble penetration piece as well, when that gets factored into what Steph can still do at age 37, that is when he becomes simply just unstoppable at this point in time. And really the dribble penetration piece over the past few years, that has waned over the past few years, obviously with the shooting not being as drastically damaging to defenses. That does give defenses like some sort of like extra wiggle room to actually sag off to some degree and obviously offer those more later contests. But obviously with Steph Curry at this point in time, when he is punishing you from deep on those types of looks with that type of aggressive confidence, that is when you have to actually play up on him. And then that's when the ball handling and the all-time on-ball traits for a 6'3 guard do come in handy, with the explosive quads that he still has to be able to attack those open lanes too. And he was just able to will his team back in both the third and fourth quarter, overcoming those small deficits that Denver were able to create. And just the belief and the intensity at his age right now is what is scary about the Warriors and why this team could possibly jump themselves up into top 5 contender discussions, especially if they keep playing as pristine as they are now. Just having that advantages of having one of the best and most overpowered weapons in the NBA. When he's this aggressive, that is what is scary about this Warriors team. Draymond Green, I mean, just a defensive masterclass and someone who probably is the perfect Jokic defender in the NBA today. And he proved it again last night. Just elite strength to deny and battle physically continuously with that high motor. So you're just harassing Jokic's base. That is the first key factor of what Draymond presents here. And then also just guarding the pick and roll, just splitting the two, offering timely help and recover situations on ball handlers, whilst also being able to still stay attached to Jokic, using that obscene wingspan, and just being able to blow up actions continuously while staying attached. That is the ultimate luxury that you're getting from maybe the best defender of the modern era. And like just the ability, and when we're talking about harassing the base and being able to stay attached with that high motor and the actual strength, the ability to disrupt the initial entry with his wingspan, with his timing, with his anticipation, with his constant pestering, and just constantly staying active whilst offering that bruising frame. He's just a bigger version of what we saw from Alex Caruso and what the damage Caruso could do in that matchup last season. And just ultimately, just the ability to disengage Jokic completely in that game, whilst also offering really plus value, denying and also switching onto Jamal Murray as well. He's still one of the best and ultimate defenders that we have going around. When you talk about the offensive stuff, I mean, this guy's just an absolute star. We saw again tonight just the passing and initiating reads as that offensive quarterback. It's always incredible, just the sharp timing, the reactive processing, just the constant decision-making, routine decision-making. That is the perfect thing with Draymond Green. And just we saw him just force Steph Curry's rhythm towards the end of the game as well. Just those quick DHO, just the proactiveness to keep on integrating Steph, forcing his rhythm into this game, forcing him into looks that he knew he could make. And ultimately, Draymond Green was just a massive part why Golden State were able to come back into this game. Moving on from him, Al Horford looked absolutely incredible coming off the bench. Again, when Draymond sits as well, you're getting this guy as another connective quarterback guy who can make those reads, provides that DHO value with substantially more spacing perks as well. Just the spacing element from the corner with his sparking shooting that he brings. The defensive help and the possessions on Jokic too. I mean, Al Horford at this age, what is he, 38, 39? He's still super athletic. You still see some pretty superhuman plays considering his age, the chase down blocks that he can make too. But just the mobility factor and then the strength, the ability to provide those late closeouts on the Jokic pick and pops. Obviously they were conceding that look, but Al Horford with the mobility and the foot speed, the lateral matching that he can also present, the actual ability to physically absorb Jokic if he was to actually attack off the closeout. He's just an exceptional pickup for Golden State. And he provides so much value to that highly cognitive defensive backline that they do present. And then also Will Richard, just another star role player towards the end of this one, just constantly making game-winning connective plays. You saw that late feed to Kuminga to get him that and one slam. We're talking about well-timed defensive rotations, deflecting post feeds in the edge with his athleticism, excellent cutting feel and timing to connect that Warriors offense. And just the Warriors, with their offseason, bringing in guys like Horford and Will Richard, these are two guys that do seem just such highly cognitive processing types of athletes. But the actual athlete part of it, just bringing in guys who actually can make plays with their athleticism and their aggressive motor, that's the difference that these two are going to make this season. And just the excellent cutting feel from Richard in particular, that just connects everything the Warriors can do. We're also looking at the tough, scrappy plays that he's able to make with the motor. He secured that fourth quarter jump ball possession, which was absolutely critical, and that led to the gutsy transition three that he hit. And obviously he deserved that standing ovation when he did get subbed out because he swayed the entire outlook on the game with his athletic momentum. Jonathan Kuminga, he looked a little shaky in this one compared to game one, especially in that second half against the Lakers where he was absolutely dominating. But in terms of just converting and executing those reads, it was a little bit inconsistent there. But he still looks committed to the Warriors system, driving and feeding, working off ball to get those cutting and driving lanes, getting that efficient feel for their system. Just the athletic plays as well. That's stuff that you can't really buy in a trade. The point of attack intensity that he was able to bring to this game, still a ton to grow in terms of the decision-making discipline as a screen navigator. But in terms of the actual development piece and what he may be able to present in the future, they probably, this Warriors team, if Kuminga's going to stay as engaged as he is right now as that point of attack option, that wing resistor, I don't think really a trade is all that necessary at this point in time. But obviously just an outstanding game on home court for Golden State in their home opener for the season. They won through speed. And really just the speed through both their personnel, but also just the decisive nature of their decision-making, giving them possessions, attacking favorable matchups all across the 48 minutes plus OT that they had. And just their aggregate passing and their space pressure across the floor is what is absolutely exceptional about this team. They're always taking advantage of, open room, creating constant outlet options for their ball handlers, offering those backline cuts, moving off ball, creating those multiple shooter actions. And then ultimately towards the end of the game, it just took just riding Steph's wave at home. And the Warriors were able to get this done against Denver, who were also trying to make a statement on opening night. Now moving on to Denver's part. Obviously you lost this game. Pretty hard loss to actually swallow, especially taking that punch in the mouth first game of the season. But overall Denver looked great. And the signs that we got from them, especially with Jokic playing pretty miserably all game, there's a lot to be optimistic about if you are Denver. Obviously, the non-Jokic minutes were probably the best part that we got from Denver, and in terms of the actual encouraging piece. And that really stems from how good of a pickup Jonas Valanciunas may turn out to be. I mean, especially if if last night was a hint for anything that may come, I mean, Jonas as like an actual passer at the big man position, we saw that on full display last night. Just so fast at reading the floor and identifying openings. Just such a great communicator. He adds such physical screening as well, plus the value of his screening because of the shooting that he can bring to the floor. He's a guy that can also score off the short roll pretty confidently as well on those touch looks from the elbows. And he just presents a matchup problem as well when defense switch the two-man game. So like Doris Burke said, this guy is extremely like Jokic. Like he brings those same Jokic types of traits and allows them to uphold that DHO heavy system. Also adding to that as well, in terms of these non-Jokic minutes, was also the bench boost that they get in spacing and execution talent overall. And that is what just lifts Denver's offensive ceiling for this season and why I do have them as a top 2 contender for the championship this year. Like we saw how much damage Tim Hardaway Jr. was able to do as a movement shooter, taking a lot of that same role that MPJ had last year, but more in a more efficient manner. You know, Bruce Brown as well coming off the bench. Someone who didn't really have too much activity offensively in this game, but like we saw the perk of having his athleticism in their defensive point of attack off the bench, just continuously active on those weak side passing lanes and pressuring transition. That stuff will be absolutely valuable for Denver's regular season offense if they do want to coast through and get their guys fully ready for a postseason push. Jamal Murray, I mean, he just looks as explosive as you'll see at this point in the season. You know, typically he's pretty slow to start the year in terms of getting himself in shape and in polish. But he was so good, just fast changing on those drives, just the pace variance, just really polished shot making early as well on those pull-up looks that he likes in the mid-range too. He just looks absolutely dynamic as of last game. And, you know, if yesterday is also any hint to what we may see for the rest of the year, I mean, just getting that all-star level ball handler, that is exactly what Denver need to actually be comfortable in this regular season. And 25 points and 10 assists from him, I mean, that's exceptionally encouraging for the season start. Cam Johnson, he gave hints of just some more defensive upside that you really didn't get from Michael Porter Jr. Just more disciplined and timely positioning, just disrupting actions, and just overall just better guarding isolation, like just general isolation than Michael Porter Jr. He can absorb contact a little bit better. He's a bit sharper when he's like laterally tracking players and meeting drives. Just more effort and intensity as well. So although he wasn't really involved that much in their offense, I think Cam Johnson, again, we saw like a little ball handling possession where he was able to open up Jokic, I think, for an open 3, which I think was one of Jokic's only 2 makes from beyond the arc. But we've seen the perks with the ball handling over the past few years in Brooklyn, and I think just when they integrate Cam Johnson more so, especially in those non-Jamal Murray minutes, I think that'll be really valuable for them. Obviously, in those minutes without Murray on the floor, but they did have Jokic and Gordon. They were more diverting to Aaron Gordon, obviously, especially he had the hot hand. But Cam Johnson will be exceptional for this team this season. I wouldn't really be worried too much about the lack of output that he was giving this game. But Aaron Gordon, he was the huge story for Denver, and it really stemmed from just his ability to actually execute on just those open jumpers, punishing closeouts early in the game. And that's really what got him on that initial heater. Just a legit exceptional tertiary scoring option at this point in time, especially within this system when his diet of actual like attempts are just all off-ball play finishing types of looks. And he just, when he's playing at this level and like when he was playing at the level that he was last season on the offensive side of the ball, he just adds that true third all-star level guy to Denver, and what really makes him, for a lot of people, the actual championship favorite for this team. And it's not just like the sparking shooting, like there's only so much you can say, but just the ability to actually just punish closeouts with confidence. And like this guy is a legit, one of the best forward shooters in the NBA today, and his shooting is real, and he's proving that once again coming into his second season. 10 for 11 on threes, that doesn't just happen to any player. Obviously, the Warriors were conceding that to a degree, and that's why he did have 7 relatively good looks to get himself in that confident feel. But also just in the second half as well, providing that post-up skill and like in the actual post-up actions that they were running for Aaron Gordon, especially from the elbows, just those over-the-shoulder fades that he can add to Denver's dimension of offense. He can fade over both shoulders on both angles, and his selective actual post-ups, especially on the ones that he was actually successful on. I think he was successful on Steph, and if I'm not mistaken, I think it was Pajemski or maybe Will Richard. I think he got a clean possession on, but just the ability to be confident on both angles, that is really also just so valuable for them. And then also just the backline finishing. Once again, we saw a really nice possession where Jokic made a really tight feed for him, but just his ability to flourish through contact, just the actual power in his frame. This guy's just mightily versatile on the offensive end, and he fits this Denver system absolutely perfectly next to Jokic, and he proved that again today, and he's proved that again over the past few years, especially growing out this shot touch from beyond the arc. Also, defensively as well, I love seeing Aaron Gordon back on the actual back line, and he's really able to do that because Cam Johnson's in the lineup and he actually presents as a strong wing resistor. Aaron Gordon on the back line is absolutely exceptional for this Denver defense if they actually want to post a top 10 defensive rating this year. And then also, you got to see the defense that he was playing on Jimmy Butler. Jimmy Butler was getting barely anything on Aaron Gordon, and Butler's actual aggression really only stepped up in those minutes when Aaron Gordon was off the floor. And with Gordon, he doesn't give up off-ball movement very easily, and he's one of the most physically deterring guys, especially when he is guarding those big physical forwards. And Jimmy Butler, he absolutely zoned him out in those minutes that he was matched up onto him. And just overall last night, just an unbelievable career game. Obviously, it was wasted, but it's definitely certainly something to look forward for. You don't just drop 50 points out of nowhere. I mean, Aaron Gordon is simply a star in this league, and 50 points and 8 rebounds is just an exceptional start to the year and a lot to be optimistic about if you are a Denver fan. Now, last point I want to hit on to is Nikola Jokic's game. Obviously, a pretty poor showing, especially in game 1. And it really stemmed from the lack of confidence that he had as a scorer. Jokic didn't really look to impose himself as a scorer much at all in this game. And obviously the Warriors played extremely well with extremely great personnel for him. But in terms of just the shots that they were conceding for him, 2 of 13 on threes, that is far from the expectation that we have for Nikola Jokic. And really it just diminishes the pick and roll possession value that he has with Jamal Murray. And every time that he did catch up within the arc, though, the reason why he was resorting to those looks is every time Jokic caught within the arc, he was unable to navigate through the surrounding Warriors' bodies with sustainability. And just the lazy mistakes, the careless reads that he was making, obviously on the Warriors' part and their defense, just being able to double down on defensive mobility with Al Horford backing up Draymond Green. And you also have Jimmy Butler roaming around somewhere at some point with Jonathan Kuminga as well. Just adds another dimension to denying Jokic those clean post-up attempts. And particularly in lineups as well, when there are glaring weak points that you can help off of, having Al Horford on that back line or having Draymond Green vice versa, that is just exceptional. And really just the Warriors may be one of the best teams at actually denying Jokic that all-time level value that he brings on the offensive end. And it comes from tiring him out with speed on the offensive end, and then also just gassing him out by harassing him at his base with these highly physical and highly intelligent mobile bigs. And really just a bad game for Jokic overall, but I don't think it's something to be worried about. This guy is clearly the best player in the world, and it was a pretty off game. 8 for 23 from the field, only 4 free throw attempts, but he still puts up 21, 13, and 10. So I don't think it's anything to be worried about. The engagement wasn't really something to be optimistic about on that end, but obviously for Denver, the offense looks incredible, and when you do get a locked in and fully intensified Nikola Jokic, that is when you're going to see the best dividends paid off the moves that you made. Now that's all I have for today's podcast episode, and I thank you guys for tuning in. Obviously, it's been an enormous start to the NBA season so far, and we were very lucky to get those 2 overtime games on national television. And to be honest with you, it is quite tiring dealing with all of these overtime games and having to take notes on all of this stuff. But obviously, it is about the fun and the urgency that we're getting from the start on the tip of the regular season. That is what is giving us all this excitement coming up for this year. So I thank you guys for tuning into the podcast. Make sure to follow at Casual NBA Fanatic on Instagram for more NBA breakdowns. And the excitement from the start of the NBA season is far from over, so stay tuned for the next episode.